Now let's move over to the Settings tab. Now in the Settings tab, you have the weight display feature here. This is the display that reads out weight display on the handle, OLED display. And here you can zero it. You can turn it on or turn it off. You can zero it. So if you wanted to, say, hang some tooling from your G-force, and you wanted to make the G-force with the tooling suspended from it your 0 point, so you'd only see your load weight, you could do that here, and that would just simply tear out the weight of the tooling. Also, you can change units on the handle display from kilograms to pounds or pounds to kilograms here. And then down below that, you have your timeout menu. And this is the different timeout menus for either your handle timer, your float mode timer, or you have some custom timers in here. But this is the float timer is if you were to set, you were to engage float mode and walk away, this will let you set how long you want that float mode to stay active before it automatically turns off on you. And then in handle mode, if you were to, if an operator were to cheat the operator presence sensor somehow, you could time out how long, you set the timer for how long that would be in that state before it would time out. So it's a safety feature there. It's a anti-tampering feature. Okay, so here float mode, this is an interesting section. Now float mode can be turned on or off. So you could simply disable float mode. Most people use float mode, so they will keep it enabled. And then here you'll see there's a button under float mode for manual or auto. Now this is a brand new feature, and you'll see that you'll remember we talked about that when we went over our G-force. And this is where you set the mode from manual mode, which is the one where you have to press a button and it goes into float mode, to auto float mode. And the auto float mode is the mode where every time you let go of the handle, it will automatically go into float mode without pressing the button. Great new feature. And then unload stop. This is a feature that will make it so that when you're in float mode and you set the load down, it will detect that the load has been set onto the surface and will automatically kick float mode out. So if you want that feature on, you turn it on. If you don't want that on, you can turn it off. And then the anti-recoil is, this is the settings you would make here for the safety feature that if you were to lose a load in float mode, the unit will actually stop moving. Say if you lost a 50-pound load and something happened and it dropped away from the hook, then if you're in float mode, that would be seen as an upward force, and it would kind of automatically rise upward at a fast rate of speed, but the G-force will quickly shut that down. It's a safety feature. But you can also make that, you can kind of add a force feature here. So you add, when you turn on force, what that does is it tries to sense the difference between an operator pushing up quickly or with a lot of intent or with a lot of force, tries to discern between that and actually losing a load, and so you don't get that kind of nuisance dropping out of float mode. And then you can also add some extra force. So you can, the more force you put here in pounds, the more force that the operator will be able to apply before that feature kicks in, where it will shut down under dropped or a loss of load. So even if you change these, it's still going to be very safe. But sometimes operators find that maybe a more aggressive operator will use more force and try to move float mode more quickly, and they'll get kind of a nuisance dropping out of float mode all the time. This is where the settings are to desensitize that a little bit and make it a little more usable for the operator. And then over here to the right, you have overload limit. This is where you'd be able to change. Now out of the factory, it's going to be about 170 pounds, at 170 pounds that is, that your overload is going to be set, where if you try to lift anything more than that, it will not lift. It stops all upward motion, and that is a safety feature to protect the equipment or the operator from lifting a load that's beyond the capacity of the unit. So now this would be a 165-pound unit that we're set up for here, or that we're connected to right now. And what that will be set for is 165-pound capacity. We do give you 5 pounds, a little bit of overage. That's not to be used at 170 170 pounds, of course, because it's a 165-pound unit. But what that is for is so it gives you 5 pounds of buffer so you don't get nuisance overloads at 165 pounds because of inertial forces. So you can set that if you click tear, you can set that simply by if you have a load hanging from the unit, you can simply hit tear, and what that'll do is it'll set the overload based on the weight of that unit. That's kind of like the easy button overload limit setting. Or you can click in here and actually dial in the exact weight of the load that you want. So I could go in here and I could make a 165-pound unit, say overload at 95 pounds, and that's how I would do that. So pretty straightforward. And then these are also with overload limits. There's this will give you a little bit of desensitizing of this feature if you want to, because if you did set, say, a 95-pound overload force here, but you had an aggressive operator, and they like to move very quickly, and then maybe their inertial forces on the load or making it overload a little bit, you could actually add a little bit more weight here, and you can go all the way up to 25 pounds of extra weight or force that the operator could add to that before it would overload. Just clear that out right there. So I go up to 25 pounds of extra force. And that would be for an operator pushing downward on the tool with the load on there, and that would give you that extra force that an aggressive operator might put on there so they wouldn't get nuisance overload limits. And then down here is the sensitivity of how sensitive that overload is, and it's just a relative setting between 1 and 5. So I could set that to anywhere between 1 and 5.